subscribe, like, do what you want, really. And we are back, folks, after 8 heated heats. We now have our 8 contenders for the championship tournament to crown the very best action figure ever made. And we begin with quarterfinal number 1 and seed number 1 on the left of your screen, the NXT North American Championship by Mattel, and the number 8 seed on the right-hand side of your screen, it is Jakks' $1 Million Championship. Now, just to let you know how these belts were seeded, I looked at their likeness to the actual real belt, the build of the toy, and subjectively, I admit, the feels that a particular belt gives me. And NXT's North American Championship came up top in the likeness to the real belt category. It only misses, in comparison to the real belt, 3 gold studs, which on the real belt appear on the gold tip here, but don't appear on this action figure version. So this is the most lifelike of all the belts we've looked at. And between that and its build and the feels, it did actually outrank what I thought would have been number 1 in Jakks' Winged Eagle Championship. How about the $1 Million Championship? Well, it scored 8 points for likeness to the real belt, but it lacks luster, which is ironic because the $1 Million Championship is probably the most gold belt that has ever been made, but this particular version is quite a dull, matte kind of gold colour. There's no real shine there. And of course, those diamonds there are just a big piece that's just been clipped into the belt itself. It also misses the diamonds running down the centre of the $1 Million links on the side. Otherwise, it scored 7 for build and 5 for feels. So what is going to determine who's going through into the semi-finals? Well, we're going to look at the first champion to hold these belts in the real world. We'll look at the last champion, or indeed current champion in some cases, to hold this belt in the real world. And then notable champions in and amongst. So first and last, and who else of note has held this championship? And we'll begin with seed number 1, the NXT North American Championship by Mattel. Your first champion was, of course, Adam Cole, baby, back in April 2018, which I thought this belt was brought about yesterday. That's quite a long time ago now. That's a good 5 years. Adam Cole, of course, won it in a multi-man ladder match, and he was the inaugural, the first champion. The last champion to hold this belt, well, of course, it's a current championship and was won by Dirty Dom Mysterio last month as a time of recording, July 2023, so still an active championship. And so was almost the $1 Million Championship. It has been around much more recently than I was really aware of, having not kept up with NXT 2.0. But of course, the first champion for the $1 Million Championship was the $1 Million Man himself, Ted DiBiase, back in February 1989. And he awarded himself this championship, of course, because he didn't win the WWF Championship. Now, people will say, oh, he didn't need to win it, etc. That's Hulk Hogan talking. Let's be honest, lots of great wrestlers in that kind of mid-80s to almost the 90s era that should have been WWF champion but weren't. So Ted DiBiase took matters into his own hands and crowned himself $1 Million Champion. The last person to hold the $1 Million Championship was in August 2021, just a couple of years ago. It was Cameron Grimes who defeated LA Knight, to become the last man to hold that championship, and it was then retired and I think amalgamated with the North American Championship. It certainly became part of another one, again, not really up on my recent NXT. Notable champions in and amongst then, well, you've got the likes of Virgil, I don't think so, and Ted DiBiase Jr. But really, the $1 Million Championship's biggest piece of history, other than the $1 Million Man himself, is surely the ringmaster / Steve Austin. Because if we hadn't had the awfulness that was the ringmaster and his kind of ice-cold persona, Steve Austin may never have been inspired enough to have become Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I think we owe an awful lot to the $1 Million Championship. And what about notable champions for the NXT North American Championship by Mattel? We have one of the greatest flyers of recent years in Ricochet. We have one of the great technicians of today in Johnny Gargano. And for me, one of the most charismatic wrestlers of recent years, albeit he's made some very interesting choices in his private life, allegedly, Velveteen Dream holding the NXT North American Championship. But which of these two is going to go through to the semi-final, and which of them could eventually end up on the podium, which you can see in the top right of your screen as the ultimate winner of the championship tournament? Well, based on likeness to the real belt, based on build of the toy, based on feels, and based on the champions that have held it, I'm sorry, $1 Million Championship, you are gone. I'm going to turn your podium upside down and I'm going to drop you in the bin. Very, very expensive piece of trash there. Yes, the day and this first quarter final belongs to seed number 1, the NXT North American Championship by Mattel. Join us next time for quarterfinal number 2 as we get closer and closer to crowning the championship belt, the greatest action figure belt ever made. Until next time, take care. Ta-ra now.